Hey everyone, what you're about to see is a conversation that I had with my friend Kristina. We had a great talk today. I really hope you guys get a chance to listen to the entire thing. Let me know what you guys think. Just give me a little comment, DM, any of that. I'm going to be linking all of her stuff down below as well. And with all that being said, enjoy.
Good. And hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of People's Perspectives. I'm here with my lovely friend Christina, and today we're going to be talking about some of the things going into 2020 and or 2021 and what happened in 2020. I'm going to let Christina take this time to explain a little bit more about who she is and how we know each other. And Christina, the floor is yours.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for having me, Connor. So glad to be a guest on your podcast. So yeah, how we know each other, we've known each other for a few years now, through my, I guess, fiance, I could call him now.
There we go. Congratulations, by the way. That's super exciting.
Thank you. So yeah, so a bit about me. Where do I begin? There's so much to a person. But a little bit about me just as a person. I am on I would say, a never ending journey of discovering myself, about, breaking barriers in culturally and, just in society when it comes to mental health specifically, because I work in the mental health field. I am a therapist. I'm currently in my master's of counseling psychology, and I'm also a career coach. So I actually started doing some career coaching recently, where it sounds like career coaching, but it's really a lot of mindset work, a lot of self discovery work, discovering limiting beliefs, and yeah, pretty much all things that have to do with who we are as people and how we feel, how we move throughout life. And yeah, that's kind of a little bit about what I do.
That's awesome. Yeah, something about trying to help people with their disconnects, maybe in their own lives or just like personal stuff in the past. I think that's absolutely awesome. I know moving forward, that's going to be super important. And I know mental health is like the stigma is kind of breaking down, which is really awesome. There's a lot more resources going into mental health, which I think is fantastic. I think, and I'm sure you agree with me, that mental health is one of the biggest issues in terms of just like global issues, just things, negative things that are happening, you
Yeah.
know, either than like suicide or how it damages relationships, which is absolutely horrible. I
Mhm.
mean, mental health is one of those things that puts people on one side. Maybe that's why we're so divided.
Mhm.
As we saw through 2020, that was very prevalent. A lot of people going one-sided, one-sided. I think it's going to be super important moving forward. And I think that's awesome. That's the industry that you're going in. I'm super
Yeah.
stoked that I have a friend that's in that industry. And I love the approach you're taking. You're taking more of like a holistics,
Mhm.
um, like internal approach rather than let's take these external things such as like medications or maybe classes or stuff like that, that all these external things are suddenly going to change who we are internally,
Mhm.
which I always thought was a little bit far-fetched. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's always a time and a place for medication. Like sometimes there's just neurological differences in the brain that you need to
Yeah.
fix, or if you need to go into a course maybe for public speaking, and that's
Mhm.
something totally understand. But I greatly appreciate your
The
more
holistic.
natural, more internal approach about how you do stuff, and I
Yeah.
think that's awesome.
Yeah, because it's like exactly how you said. Like, mental health is, it's literally like the foundation of who we are as people, and it doesn't just go for, like, when someone's experiencing some sort of extremes, like how you said, suicide or medication. Like, mental health is something that is here. It's prevalent in everybody's life, and everything that we do, like the way we drive our car, the way that we have conversations with friends, with parents, with coworkers, the way we choose our careers, like the way we choose our food in the grocery store. It's all, everything starts with you, and everything starts with, us as a society, and that's how that ripple effect goes larger into the world, and then we see these divides. But we're all really the same, and, like, yeah, we all really have the same needs and the same wants, and it comes down to very basic things that just have been so suppressed for such a long time, and have had such like a taboo around them. Talking about mental health, it's literally everyone has a brain, so everyone, whoever is conscious or not conscious, even you have mental health 100%. So
I
let's just normalize
completely
that.
agree, and I know moving through 2020, like you had a really solid year of like self improvement. Was there any like any of those solid foundational things that a lot of people miss out in your daily life that you incorporated that worked out well for you?
Yeah, definitely. Like 2020 was such a shit show in some regards, of course, and I think it was for everybody. But at the same time, too, I think it highlighted a lot of our own self perspective. Just like, are we seeing the glass as half full or half empty? Like it's completely, yeah. Self perspective was a huge one because I think majority of our plans and all these things that we've been like working towards and expecting, and we've been wanting to like reach these certain destinations, a lot of things just got kind of put off, and they still are being put off in lots of regards. So we had to kind of all had to like dig a little deeper to I guess make meaning and make the best out of things and kind of continue with progress, even though progress is looking different. And yeah, I did have like, a lot of I would say a lot of self improvement too, but a lot of turmoils too, like a lot of
Yeah.
discovering things that I didn't want to discover, I would say. And I think, yeah, those suppressed areas, or we were kind of all forced to deal with it because it was just no option. It was like coming out for everybody. And one of my biggest ones was dealing with uncertainty. Like uncertainty definitely takes me out of my safety zone. There was such
Hmm.
time in my life where I think where I was like like a young teenager, and I was kind of just living day by day, chilling, like cruising throughout life. And I think that I didn't really see anything wrong with it until I kind of got into my early 20s, and then I was like, okay, like where's my progress, where's my focus? I was feeling really lost. So I completely did like flip the switch and started to really plan things, and like really like I that's where I was feeling more confident, when I was like gaining control of all these areas of my life. And then 2020 happened, and all that control got thrown out the
Yep.
so kind of navigating through that was really challenging for me. But I think again, like it taught me so many great things, and it kind of when we put that control on ourselves, what I found was I was limiting myself to things had to play out a certain way, or I had to get to a certain destination through these certain steps, and like that's just not life. So I think it was a hard pill to swallow, but it was definitely needed. And I think it will be of benefit like going forward, just being more flexible in the journey, I guess, is the way to
A
put it.
100%. I think, like flexibility and adaptability to situations, especially nowadays when things change super quick. Like it sounds kind of cliche, but we went from like no internet for thousands and thousands of years to holy crap, like super slow, whatever internet to we have 5G in like 15 years. Like
Yeah.
a ridiculous adaptability. And then it
Mhm.
comes to the fact that I think sometimes people forget that failure is a huge part of success
Oh yeah.
and that the most successful people fail majority of the times. So,
100.
and I pretty much guarantee you majority, except for like e-commerce and Instagram influencers and stuff like that, their plans originally of 2020 failed through the year because, you can't do certain stuff. Obviously the pandemic was going on. So I think that adaptability is super crucial. But
Mhm.
the ability to deal with failure and deal with rejection, and you might get rejected from a job, or you might have dedicated a year into this project and it just fell flat because of the pandemic and whatever happened, and it's the ability to deal with failure. How crucial do you think that's going to be for kind of the younger generation who maybe is a little bit used to stuff happening right away, maybe even though they don't deserve it at some situations, although there are a lot of young people that work super hard,
Mhm.
there might be a sense of like laziness or slight timidness to failure, and I just want to curious on your perspective on that.
Yeah, I actually love this topic. It's like one of my favorite things. This is why, kind of hence where I started getting into that career coaching aspect, because I think people's mindset towards like money or goals and things are so jagged now because of all the things that we see, like you said, like social media and all these like outside influences that we have, where people are just sharing their like highlight reels of success and what that looks like. But they don't share the struggle as often. However, there
Hmm.
are starting to be a lot of people who are, and I really appreciate that. And exactly how you said, like success like we all have this like definition relationship with what failure looks like. For most people, I would say like 95% of people, it's like a negative thing. Like they look at
Hmm.
failure as it's so negative. It means they're not competent, and or they're not able to do something. That's what they define it for themselves. But people just neglect, I guess, the lessons or like the beauty in failure. We learn so much more from failing at things than we do from just getting things right the first time. Like there's so much more knowledge or depth or wisdom in having to really try hard for something. And like they say, nothing worth having is comes easy. And I know that again, it's a
Hmm.
cliche quote, but it's facts. It's just big facts. It's so true.
Huge
Um,
facts.
yeah, huge facts. And I think that exactly how you said, like the younger generation, I think they have such instant gratification. And I want to talk about the danger of instant gratification is it takes away the longevity of working hard or having bigger goals. Like so now I find so many people are looking for like a quick fix, whatever it comes to like relationship or like, and when it comes to like even money, like they make their goals based off how fast will this be, like how long will I have to work at this, when will I see the result. And the thing is that that's the problem, is people are so focused on the result, and it can't be the result because that's not what's going to take you through push you through those hard times. Like you can't be going to work for a paycheck. And I know that so many people are going to feel a certain type of way about that, but
Yeah.
it's true. Like that will only take you so far. And even working with clients, the biggest thing I see is burnout. And the reason why people are burnt out is because they have no purpose or passion in their career besides a paycheck or like putting food on their table. And I know that's huge and important, and we can't minimize that, but there has to be more to it than this instant gratification piece. Like you can't just want to look a certain way or have certain things. They're never gonna keep you fulfilled. And I'm actually doing my thesis for my master's on the correlation of passion, grit, and success. Because
Nice.
yeah, the
I
thing, like,
love that.
yeah, I love it too. And the thing we think about, like, I know this is such a huge figure. Like I always use Kobe Bryant. Like one thing about him is he was never focused um, on getting this material outcome or getting this pay. He showed up day and day and day out after failing, after, losing, after being injured. But he had a bigger purpose. Like his purpose was his love for the game and for showing people that hard work, is what it takes. And that's really what it is. Hard work is what it takes. And any successful person, you'll find one common thing is that they come back after they fail. And that's what separates them from everybody else.
I agree, and I didn't know if you actually knew this, but Kobe Bryant's like my idol in terms of like work ethic and just like
I did not know that.
yeah, he's actually like the reason why I got like super competitive into like sports as a kid, and like he's actually like my huge thing.
Wow.
Because like you said, like he didn't care about the outcome. He said like I'm gonna work harder than everybody else. So the only reason why I'm gonna fail at something is because either they're more talented than me or it's just bad luck. One of those things can't happen, but you can't plan for either of those because you can kind of only control what you do. But I
Mhm.
like completely agree that, like work ethic, purpose, grit, all that's super important. Like uh some people might disagree, but let's be honest, like the world is in the best place now that it's ever been at in terms of like what we know about health, exposing maybe things that systematically aren't great. Like, yes, there's still improvements and there's still divide, but the world's at the best, like it's better now than it was in the 80s, and it's better now than it was in the 20s.
For sure.
And but why is mental health on the rise?
Yeah. So true.
So like mental health's on the rise. We have a lot of great opportunities. Like there's a lot of like nice houses and there's a lot of like foundations put into great work. Yeah, there's a lot of room to improve, but mental health is on the rise. Suicide's on the rise. Divorce is on the rise.
Mhm.
Everything is everything's kind of deteriorating a little bit. And personally, I think a bit of that's, people have lost the passion for stuff. Um, like when I was talking to one of my grandparents the other day, and I had a great grandmother who lived to 107. And one of the reasons why we think that she lived so long is because, she was always doing stuff. Like she was always doing bridge, she was always going out for meetings, she was always going out and doing stuff
Oh,
like literally up until like 105 years old. And
love
she had
that.
like such this like spunky personality, and she was honestly like the best lady. Like I love her.
Oh,
And but it was one of those things that like she saw her friends die around her because they just gave up, or there just wasn't anything they were striving for. And
yeah.
like obviously that's going to happen at 80, 90 years old, but you see it happening now at 20, 30, 40, people just giving up and just not having a passion and purpose. And
Mhm.
it's like that's one of the things that drives us as a human being,
It is.
because if we're not trying to go anywhere, what's the point of traveling?
It drives our motivation like to the fullest, right? Like our
Hmm.
motivation is purely based, something has to be there to motivate us. Like we don't just wake up and have nothing planned or nothing to do, or whether it's like simple things like your child or your parent, you want to help your parent out, like the littlest things, like even people will be, they are subconsciously motivated by the smallest factors, like having a cup of coffee, like that's what gets them out of bed, like things like that.
Yeah.
And it's so true, but when we look at like life as a whole, the motivation has to be something bigger than ourselves.
100%. I think that's super important. I think obviously you want to like focus on yourself in terms of building a good foundation, and once you're in check and solid, branch out, because just like they say on the planes, don't help anybody else before you've helped yourself, which I
Yeah.
think is super crucial. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's bigger than yourself. It's what are you doing? Are you trying to make an impact on other people? Are you trying to make an impact that's going to last generations? Are you
Yeah.
trying to make an impact that's going to enhance and add value to other people's lives?
Mhm.
I think when we start branching away from what am I gonna do
Mhm.
versus what can I do for you, or what
Yeah.
can I do for somebody else?
Yeah.
I mean, like who's not happy doing something nice for somebody else?
Exactly. And like that, exactly that. And I just want to also point out too, like I feel sometimes when I have this conversation with like friends or family, they are kind of like, "Oh, it's easier for you to feel like that, you work in the mental health field, of
Hmm.
course you're feeling like you do things for other people." But I think it can, no, not that I think, I know it can happen for anybody. Like for example, okay, so I'll take Karn for example. So he is like a builder, right? And like people might wonder, okay, like like of course you're bringing joy by building someone a home, but at the end of the day, his purpose is not like it's not solely that he wants to build homes and make money. His goal one day is he wants to like save up enough money where he can open like a hockey arena for kids who can't afford to play hockey. Like that's his dream. And this is how he's getting there. But his goal is not necessarily his career is what's gonna like take him there, but his purpose behind wanting to be successful in his career is so much larger than himself. And I think that we can do this in like any field. You could be anything in the world, but like you still can have a larger drive behind it. It doesn't have to be, their drive doesn't have to be like what you're necessarily doing in those hours of at work, like. And that's where that piece of also the younger generation, like they do the basics and they like cover, and not
Uh,
just the younger generation, a lot of people, they cover
yeah,
just, they're like, okay, I went to work today, I made the money, I came home. But then they don't come home and like do something that drives them. And that's where people are just
100%.
so like distracted, and they just like watch Netflix, which is great, like do that later. But
Yeah.
like don't forget to work on yourself.
Oh, 100%. And I heard this quote. I forget. I heard it a while ago. I forget who said it, but the quote went kind of like, "It's sad when you go and work for somebody else's dream for 8 hours and come home and don't even spend a minute on yours." And that's not saying like you have to grind out sleepless nights and like do stuff.
Oh,
Obviously, there's situations, but take some time,
mhm,
figure out kind of like a little bit more who you are,
mhm,
like maybe where there's like a disconnect. Nobody's going to be perfect, everybody's fucked up in their own ways, like, let's
100%.
be completely honest.
Yeah.
And like I think if people just made like subtle changes to their daily routine on like just a consistent basis, that's not, you have to go from you work, Netflix, sleep, to wake up in the morning, gym, work, and then go home and work on your stuff for like 4 hours and get 5 hours. Like, you don't
No,
need to do that. It's
no.
like the little subtle changes, you know, like
Yeah, 5 minutes.
exactly 5 minutes. 5 minutes, either like educate yourself or just like work towards something. And if you
Write in
want to,
your journal, like, right, ask yourself one interesting question in a day to get to know yourself more. It takes
oh, I like that.
5 minutes. Yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah.
So moving with kind of like the routine of everybody,
Mhm.
if there was like one comment you could give from your experience of talking with people, what's that thing that on a daily basis people could improve on, um, that's going to build onto other things? So like kind of like health or maybe reading or like whatever you think, or it can be more than one, but whatever you think's like super important
Yeah.
in that
So
area.
I think there's one that I feel I've noticed has shown up for ev- every single one of my clients and every single one of my loved ones, myself, and I think that this is such a good way to put it because it goes so beyond just this one word or just this one act. So I think reflecting is the
Hmm.
biggest thing that you can ever do for yourself, whatever situation you're facing, whatever you're feeling. If you're feeling great, even, I think it's still so important to reflect because the thing with reflecting is it gives us a deeper understanding to what's really going on. Like
Hmm.
it peels back that layer kind of that we don't really get to. And I do love the reason why I say reflecting over things, like I think reading books and things are so important as well. But if you could pick one thing a day that you could do, like very minimal time, effort, even in your head, but really, really reflect, I think, on just anything. Like it can be so basic, like, okay, today I was happy, like what made me happy? It could be, okay, that conversation I had with Connor, why did that make me happy?
Hmm.
Because I felt like I learned something from it, or I felt like I was able to give something back. And just with those little pieces of reflection, we discover so much. And I think that without any, like, we can read all the books, we can have all the talks, we can listen to all the podcasts, but if we don't really sit back and think about what they mean to us as an individual, we're not really, we're just also still living for everybody else and taking everyone else's. Like, we need to know our perspective and where we stand and how things influence us, because you and I can listen to the exact same conversation and you can take away some things, but I'll take away some different things. Reflection is what builds our perspective. Perspective is everything.
I think you know what I think about perspective. I think
Yeah.
perspective's like super, super important. And like I love what you said there that like when people they kind of they can think two different perspectives, but it can still kind of be in the positive light. And I
Mhm.
think like nowadays, like just like with the division, it's kind of like you're one way or the other way. And like it's like no, it's like you can take a little bit from this, like a little bit from that,
Learn
and
from
you
everyone.
yeah, you can agree to disagree. Like nothing would have really have changed if people didn't disagree. Like we
Yeah.
would still be in little huts if it wasn't for that.
Yeah.
And like I think perspective's like super, super important.
Mhm.
Like why are people saying what they're saying? Like I use the example when I talk to my friends with like what's going down in the States, like you have your Republicans and Democrats,
Yeah.
and people like completely support Trump and some people completely don't. It's like, okay, well, why? People probably support Trump because they feel disconnected from the mainstream of economics, the mainstream of government, and then people might really not like Trump because of maybe something he said or just kind of like
Yeah.
the person who he is or the morals that he projects.
Mhm.
And nobody's right, nobody's wrong. it's
Oh,
it's their perspective, and it's the
exactly.
ability to understand that people might think differently, and
Yeah.
that's okay. You don't it doesn't if you hate Trump and somebody loves Trump, that
There.
person shouldn't piss you off.
Yeah,
Like that's
exactly.
just a difference, which is fine.
People have such an emotional, like, reaction. Okay, and
Hmm.
another thing too, when we come to exactly how you say that, that shouldn't piss you off. It's because without reflecting, people are just reacting. Like, they're just reacting to, like, everything and everything.
Seriously.
Like, they hear one thing and, like, and you hear one thing and then news, and people don't even pause to, like, oh, okay, let me try to put this into context, or let me try to see this other person's view. Like, that capacity is, like, going down and down and down, and it's getting so bad where, like, people are just yeah, they're so divided, and they're just so like they don't even grasp that, okay, maybe this person grew up like with, and maybe this person grew up in, I don't know, in some sort of religion where they were completely dismissed, and they're, that's why there's such an extreme on the other side. Like
Yeah.
you never know people's stories. And then one thing too is that I think people just think that people act out of stupidity, or oh, that person's just stupid, they don't know this, or they're
Hmm.
or whatever it may be, like they think they're lacking something, like, there's something wrong with them. But really nobody just reacts like people, or acts a certain way, or reacts a certain way, based off nothing. Like everything is driven by something, and it goes back to that motivation piece that we talked about. But there's so many subconscious, underlying reasons why people feel a certain way towards something, and I think everyone deserves to have their underlying reasons be valued, because they are valued. Their experiences
Exactly.
people went through. Like we're not here to judge um, people's choices or people's perspectives based on our own, because we don't
Hmm.
know theirs. Like we have that thing. We are nobody to say something about how another person views things.
Exactly. We don't have context. We might have 5 minutes worth of context
Yeah,
of why they feel the way that they do, which is
nothing.
I, which is nothing in comparisons of like how somebody's life and how they dictate themselves, and
Yeah, even
it's
loved
yeah,
ones too. Like we think,
yeah,
like, I could think that, okay, like I, even my siblings, like I could totally think like I understand where they're coming from. Like they're my siblings. I grew up with them. I see how they live. But at the end of the day, I still don't know. Like I don't know really what they're
yeah.
going through at the end of the day.
Which is completely true. And like this is on that's honestly like kind of why I wanted to do something like this is like just like talk to people like unbiased, like give your perspectives, like tell me a little bit more about why you feel like the way that you do.
Mhm.
Um, which is I think important, not saying that I'm doing something super important, but I think more people should move in that direction of because you see a lot of stuff on the news and it's completely one way, and then
Totally.
if that person's already got that idea and that's all they look at, I mean, if all you look at is something's bad, 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 or something's super good, 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 that's all you're gonna think.
All the
And it's the ability to, maybe like look at one perspective and be like, okay, I disagree, but I understand it.
time.
And then you can look at your perspective and be like, this is how I feel, and this is why I understand it. There's always common ground somewhere, and it's always that conversation of, okay, like how, like where is the common ground?
Hmm.
Um, and I think like if people actually like sat down, like chilled out, like 20%,
Yeah.
just like chilled out a little bit and
Yeah.
just like started at the foundations and didn't get into the nitty-gritty details about stuff, a majority of people would disagree, or majority of people would agree.
Agree. They would agree. And that's where that this is one thing I've noticed too. Like I'll have clients or and people in my life. I always like to like, even though I say clients, I have the exact same experiences with my friends, myself, my family, everybody. So just people in general, really. We all have this, like whether we're going, I'll see them come in and have so many different they're coming in for complete different reasons. Like some are for relationships, some are for like job burnout, some are for like parents, some are just completely coming in for themselves. But there's one common thing that everybody has. We all have the same needs. We have the
Hmm.
same basic needs. Anything we do, any way we feel, any way we react, any parts of our personalities are to serve our needs. And this is like embedded in childhood, and it's just a fact of who we are. Like we do things to they serve a certain part of ourselves, and our needs are to be loved. Everyone wants that. That's a
Yeah,
fact. Even that guy who comes in and acts like, he wants to be a bachelor forever, he has a need to be loved. Whether, and everyone gets it in different ways. Maybe you
yeah,
don't get it through a relationship, which is 100% fine, but your need to be loved is going to manifest out in other ways of your life. We have a need to feel important.
hmm,
Everyone wants to feel important. We have a need to want to feel seen and heard. That's like a fact. Everyone wants to feel seen and heard. Even the introverts who don't want to speak out on their opinions, they still want to feel heard.
yeah,
Um, and everyone has a need to yeah, to feel like they belong. And that's it. That's all it really is. Like those people who are like on the Republican side extreme, and the people who are on the Democrat, if you ask them, like, if you really got down to where why they feel a certain way, or why they feel so strongly about certain things, it's serving one of those needs. And I can like promise you that.
I I couldn't agree more. I like obviously like that's exactly it. Like everybody wants to be heard, everybody wants to be important, everybody like wants love.
Mhm.
And a majority of the time when you look at something like that's a super extreme case, like you're extreme on one side or you're extreme on one issue, it usually derives from something,
A huge
some
need.
kind of disconnect.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. A huge, and when people feel like the people who are very like close, not close, yeah, well, close-minded to seeing the opposite side, it's
Mhm.
usually because they have such a need that's not met and such a great respect where they're feeling like they need to like foster that opinion or that belief so hard and they have to like shelter it in order to keep that need safe. Like they feel like if they even
Mhm.
open their mind or open their heart to like a little bit of the other side, they're running a risk of like losing that need to be covered. That's it, just comes back to survival. Like it comes back
It
to like,
does.
yeah, that's all it really is. Like, and people focus on things like money to get those needs met or materialistic, but I can like again promise you with give that $70,000 in your bank account 6 months, it's gonna feel normal to you now because it's gonna become the norm, and you're gonna
Exactly.
look for your needs somewhere else until you really get true with yourself about what that need looks like.
Exactly. Like there's tons of billionaires that are depressed and unhappy.
Tons,
And
yeah.
then it's like they got a lot of power. And one thing that kind of was brought to my attention, I think it's like super important to get into is like how are you raised? Like as
100%.
as kids, like not saying that any parent's bad, like bad per se, because you know,
They don't
parenting is a
know.
very important
Yeah,
job.
hard.
It's there's no manual for it essentially. Uh, maybe some strategies are better than others, but I mean, like if people are saying like, oh, like this younger generation is lazy or self-conscious or selfish or whatever. Okay, we didn't raise ourselves.
Nope, we
Like
didn't raise.
we didn't raise ourselves to get to these positions. You and I are both in our 20s, so it's our responsibility to be who we are now. Like
100%.
it's our responsibility to say, okay, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not like I'm still somebody's son, but I'm not somebody's son who's molding me. Like I'm my own person.
Not responsible for us at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like it's do you think the parenting strategies or maybe the parents just like not caring as much or maybe not being as prepared for parenting as they were earlier on in life, how do you think that's affected kids moving
Yeah,
forward?
I think it's huge because also like I just want to point out the fact that like from the time that we were kids to now, like shit has changed a lot.
So much.
Um so much. It's kind of it's a little scary. I'm gonna be honest about that. It's kind of scary because nowadays there's so much out there raising your children besides what's learned in the household. Like,
Yep,
you know,
so true.
so true, right? I was actually talking to like a client about this. I was like, like you're thinking that like, she's like so has all these like like ways she wants to raise her kids and like she's very fixated and I'm just like, yeah, look, you can do all that, like don't get me wrong, but there's still a chance your kid's gonna turn fucked up. Like that's just the fact. You
There-
don't have to
there's still a
control and you
chance.
never did really. But I think that another thing is I think it can go like very both ways. Like I think that
Hmm.
parenting style, first of all, plays a huge role, and that's for sure always going to be there. Like I used to not think that. I even used to not think that it did play such a big role, and it's funny because I come from like a psychology background, and like all they talk about is childhood development for a large number
Yeah.
of it, right? And you're just like, shut up! Like I'm not even the same person who I was as a child, but I find if you really go back to anything you're struggling with or you're feeling fixated or stuck on, it usually is coming from one of those needs not being met, and that's because we learn to have those needs met a certain way as a child, right?
Hmm.
And whether it comes from like the eldest sibling who kind of looks out for everybody else, 30 years later, she might realize that she's like a pushover at work, or, she's scared to say something to her boss. And she's never going to think it comes to do with childhood because she had a good childhood.
Yep.
But it comes back from that little tiny correlation. But at the same time, too, like, I think everyone needs to find that right balance of, okay, yeah, my circumstances have happened, they've affected me. I need to
Yep.
reflect on how they affected me, but I'm going to be the conscious person who chooses how I'm going to let it affect me going forward now that I'm aware, and that's our responsibility. Like just three simple things: awareness of how it impacted us, awareness how it's impacting me now, and my choice moving forward is my choice, and you got to take responsibility for that. And there's just no like I know people who grew up in like very stable households who are like in jail now, and I know
Yeah,
people who grew up in households where their parents were in jail who are very stable people now, and that's because they made that conscious effort or they didn't.
exactly. I think that's so true. I think a lot of people put blame on other people where it's like you might be able to, but there's always somebody that has a bigger excuse.
Always, always.
Like there's always there's one person in this world that gets to complain, and that's the person at the bottom. And I guarantee you, anybody like listening to this is not that person.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
you most likely have like internet at a house and stuff like that. It's okay to be upset, and it's
Yeah.
okay to think of like negative stuff happening. And that's where it's like you said, like we reflect and okay, why is this happening? Understanding of like why the issue's happening. And it's easier said than done. It's
Oh yeah,
sometimes
it's a lot of work.
extremely hard, but
Yeah,
we're our own people. Like we need
yeah,
to take responsibility
yeah.
for
And
our
it's
own
like
actions.
exactly. And it's like either you decide to do it now, or you're going to be, this is what one of the biggest reasons why I got into this field too. And what scared the shit out of me as well as a person, why like I like to self-discover, is either you do it now or you wait until you're 60 and or you're 70 and you're bored as hell and you're sitting there one day, or your life is literally passed before you and you're like, holy fuck, I did nothing that I wanted to do, or like I don't even know what I like or who I am. And
Yeah.
you're gonna feel, and I think so many people are left feeling like, you know, in their older ages they don't know themselves, like they don't know. And that's where it comes into like exactly what you said about your great grandma. Like she knew things that made her happy, like the littlest things, whether it was like, you know, you said
Yeah,
she did those little things, but she knew that that's what made her happy. And like she could have grabbed one of her friends and made them do it too, but that might not, like your grandma took the time to figure that out, your great grandma, sorry, took the time to figure
100%.
that out, right? And that's what she gets. Like at the end of the day, that is her, like your life is at the end of the day, life is short, but it's, or life is long but it's not,
Yeah.
but it's really not. Like it's we never know. And I think it's one of my biggest fears personally was to be that like old person who's like miserable, because I just see all the options we have now and all the opportunity. And like don't get me wrong, I grew up in a pretty like a little bit of a rougher household than like most people around me, but at the same time like I saw that my parents didn't have as much freedom to like explore themselves. Like these topics weren't even a topic. Like the word mental
Yeah.
health is barely uttered. And I'm just like, how stupid can I be to like just ignore that forever and just sit back and just do the same thing? Like I can't do that to myself.
I agree, and I think it's so much easier to try. You don't need to figure it out, but it's so much easier to try to figure it out in your
Try.
20s than try to figure out in your 50s. Like life's an ongoing journey, and like if you find out like what you want to do in your passion before 30, like you are super lucky.
You're so
Like
lucky.
you're so lucky. But
Mhm.
it's the attempt to like at least try and like realizing that you might have this issue that affects you, and you might have to like understand that you're not going to be able to do certain things. Like I think we both understand that you and I are not going to be like NFL players. I
Yeah,
think we can both understand that. And then it also comes into kids in schools, like elementary school and high school,
what they're
where
teaching.
they might have like a little bit of an attention disability. People
Yeah.
call it a disability, but I just think it's your
No.
brain's just wired differently. And then
Yeah.
they get thrown on drugs. They're on drugs for 20 years. Their creativity, which I think is great. I think everybody should have a lot of creativity. Is
100%.
suppressed, their happiness, and they're just feeding into somebody else's perspective of what they should do.
Yeah, we live in like this. It's like the problem with the whole, like I straight up call it the rat race. Like we live in a rat race. It's
Yep.
fact. Like we're all like told, and you know, at the end of the day, too, like we got to think too, like why are so many people wanting to control us? Like why are like, you know, like what is the, because it becomes like a little, we become limitless when we like control ourselves and our choices on the our our thoughts. Like we do become limitless. And the thing is too, I like how you said the word try, because exactly that, like the self-discovery piece comes in the trying. Like
Mm,
you can't just go from like here to like the end of the journey or whatever. You're not gonna discover yourself. The discovering comes from like failure. It comes from trying something and not liking it. Like I think that's so
yeah.
important. And it goes like it's even the same with like dating. Like I think that so many people, it's just such a great analogy. I always like to use the dating analogy, because what are you going to do, date the first person and then stick with them forever because it's safe and like it's safe? Like no, you need to go out and experiment, and you need to find like what you like. And the more options you've had, or the more people you've talked to, even just not in a dating regard, just in general, the more you discover about what you like, who you like to be around, who you don't like to be around, who rubs you the wrong way, or whatever it may be. Like you discover from trying. Like you need to, it's a
Mhm.
statistically proven thing. Like the
Yeah,
more times that you have done something, the more opportunity for getting better at
I
it.
agree. And
That,
it's like it comes into the analogy of you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take.
yeah.
And it's I like that what he said, like with the date and the more people that you don't even date, but it's just go up to the person and talk to them.
Yeah.
Like, you might have this like super big crush that you think's like super cool, and you might go have a conversation with them, and they might be like horrible.
Yeah.
Or there might be this person that you would have never have thought about, and then you go up to the person, you guys might actually have like a super cool connection. And
Totally.
it
Yeah.
just comes into trying, and like it's the trying, it's the failures and figuring stuff out that builds confidence. Like
It
I
is.
think
Yeah.
confidence is like a huge thing. Like ego, cockiness is something different
So
than
different.
confidence.
Yeah.
But it's just knowing that, like I'm confident with whatever happens. I'm not confident that I'm gonna particularly win or
Up.
particularly do well, but I know at the end of the day, this isn't like I'm still gonna be good. Like I'm chilling.
Doesn't define me. Like it's just an experience that
Exactly.
I'm going through. And it's exactly that. Like the reason why we need to expose ourselves to like different views, different people, different things, try creative outlets and things like that, is because it's exactly like we don't know how much we love the sunshine unless we feel the rain.
Hmm.
You don't know. You never know. And one thing too, like I also want to share, as I feel just hit me so hard one day, and I love this. I don't know if you know Brene Brown, but she's like this social woman. I don't know. She has a PhD. She's very smart, but she
Okay.
talks about how she basically pointed out the fact that she grew up in a very like not vulnerable household. So comes with vulnerability, comes like fear to fail. So she's really scared to fail, and she was like always had to have her everything in order kind of thing. Then she talked about now she's like working in the field of debunking all of that because it's bullshit. And then she talked
Yeah.
about how our capacity to feel love, say if we only want to ever love something or anything or anyone at a level 5 instead of a 10, because obviously if we love it at a level 10, then we have more chance of being hurt, right? Because we put more
Hmm.
into it. Same with goals, right? If we have a hope up to a level 10, we have more chance of being hurt, because but if we only care to a level 5, then we're kind of, oh, it's not going to affect me if it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
But with that, we only have the ability, if we keep our ability there, we only have the ability to also feel happiness at a level 5.
Yeah.
That's facts. If we're not open to feeling failure at a level 10 or sadness at a level 10, then we're not able to feel happiness at a level 10. It
Ex-
works both ways.
exactly. Like we set up our own boundaries. I think that's very important actually. If you that, I've never heard that before. I'm sorry. That's actually really cool.
It
I
was
love that.
really cool. I'll send you the link to it after. But yeah, she said it so simply. If you're only open to feeling sadness at a level 5, then just know you're limiting your happiness to a level 5 forever. And that's true.
I think that's really cool. I think it's the limitations you put on yourself are probably the biggest limitations
Ever.
that get put on people.
Uh-huh.
That's
Ever.
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, I got one more topic to get into because I know we've been talking for like an hour, and
Okay.
this has honestly been like a great conversation. I love this.
Yeah.
But I always like to tie in fitness, physical activity. 2020, everybody's been locked in to their houses. Majority of gyms have been closed. Um, how important do you think that's been going through 2020? And how important do you think just general happiness, all that is physical activity, not particularly a gym, but a
Any
walk, if you go paddleboarding, whatever.
Yeah, I think it's, you know me on a personal level too. And I know that you also think this, but it's changed my life in every single way. Like my mental health wouldn't even be close to where it is now. And it's not perfect at all, but fitness and just physical activity has like changed my freaking life. Like I can't even explain. And and I felt it from a personal level, and then I actually started to like look into like the research behind it and the statistics behind it. And honestly, it is the best gift you can give yourself. 20 minutes a day, like it can be anything. Literally move your body. Like we act like our minds and our everything is so separate it's from our body. No, like we are literally a physical being, and if we don't honor and pay attention to our physical being, everything else is gonna dwindle down. And it goes to like with food too, and it's not a like an all in or nothing
I
thing.
agree. Moderation.
Everything
Huge
in balance.
moderation
It's
guy.
so important. Like honestly, everything in balance. You don't want to ever put that stress on yourself where you gotta like, you want to like have fun with it. But I think it's so important too. Like if we talk about it from like a chemical perspective, our endorphins need to be released. Like they need to be released. They're part of our endorphins play off our serotonin, which is like our happy chemical, on so many levels. Like they go hand in hand. And one time I heard somebody said in my classroom in my undergrad, like she said, and she talked about the biology of the brain. She was like, I'll put it as simple as this: put anybody in a darker room with the blind shut, not going outside for like 5-6 days, with like crappy food. I can guarantee you it can be like the world's greatest athlete. You do that to them for 5 days straight, I guarantee you their dopamine will drop, their serotonin will drop, everything will drop. It's not a circumstantial thing. It's like literally, but it's like a fact of who we are. Like we all need that to be optimally like performing in any other aspect, and just to feel good. Like you need to feel good about yourself. You need to feel confident in your ability, and the more and more you like put it off and just kind of like ignore how important physical activity is, the harder it may seem. But honestly, like to anyone listening to this, just start. Like literally put on music
Yep.
in your room and dance. Like do
Yeah.
anything that you just, yeah, we all need it. It's like there's not one person. It's not a subjective matter. It's an objective as a whole. Everybody
Hmm.
needs it. It's like whether we want to look at it through like a spiritual lens, a psychology lens, a scientific lens, a physiological lens, it all says the same thing. We need it. It's important.
I couldn't agree more. I think people think that they have to go from nothing to an hour and a half instantly, and that's usually when it fails. And same with diets, they have to go from, pardon my language, but a shitty diet
Yeah.
to, rice, chicken, blah blah. Like no, like
Nope.
moderation. Maybe
Yeah.
over time, maybe over the course of like a year or two, you can do that. But
Yeah.
it's moderation. Just get up, get moving. I think that's super important. Christina,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining me today. It
Thank
was
you so
so
much
great
for
to
having
talk to you. I'm gonna be linking all of her stuff down below on the YouTube channel. And if you guys want to reach out to her, she's a great person to talk to. Do you have any last words or anything you want to say?
No last words. All I want to say is, yeah, my DMs are always open for anyone who wants to chat, anyone who wants to, yeah, just have a conversation or need some support or any resources or anything like that. And another thing I want to say too is there's no difference between any of us. We all are capable. We all have the options, and I just really encourage you to start choosing yourself.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's just that starting. You just have to start and then
Yeah.
just consistently do it.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. Everyone, I'll link down all her stuff. I'll link down some other stuff as well. But other than that, we're all done here. Thank you everybody for listening in,
Thank you,
and
everyone.
we'll catch you next time.